Every economist agrees. When inflation surges, you raise interest rates to cool it down. Erdogan looked at that consensus and decided every economist was wrong. He cut rates instead. What followed has permanently redefined what one man's stubbornness can cost a nation. What separates this from every other economic collapse? This wasn't a market failure, a pandemic, or a sanctions crisis. This was a theory. One man's personal theory, held with religious certainty, enforced with authoritarian power that high interest rates don't fight inflation, they cause it. Standard economics is unambiguous. Raise interest rates, borrowing becomes expensive, spending slows, prices stabilize. Central banks have used this mechanism for a century. It is not debated. It is the most reliable lever any government has against runaway inflation. Erdogan believed the opposite. He called high interest rates the mother and father of all evil, and he meant it. In his framework, cheap money fuels production. Production increases supply, and supply drives prices down. Economists called this dangerous. Erdogan called the economists servants of foreign financial powers. Here's the trap this created. When you hold that belief, and you hold absolute political power, the kind that lets you fire central bank governors on a whim, the theory stops being abstract. It becomes policy. Between 2019 and 2021, Erdogan fired 4 central bank governors, 4 each dismissed by presidential decree after refusing to cut rates. The speed was breathtaking. One governor lasted less than 2 months. Governors who disagreed were replaced with loyalists who understood the assignment. By 2021, the benchmark interest rate had been slashed from 19% to 8.5%. The signal this sent to currency markets was unmistakable. Turkey's monetary policy was no longer run by economists. It was run by one man's personal conviction, and markets responded accordingly. Remember what I asked at the start? How does one man's personal theory destroy an entire economy? We're about to see the mechanism. Because what happened to the Turkish lira over the next 18 months was not gradual. It was a free fall. In 2018, $1 bought 3.5 Turkish lira. By late 2021, it bought 18. By 2022, it crossed 36. Savings built over decades gone. Not through a dramatic bank collapse, but through the quiet arithmetic of a currency that stopped being worth what it used to be. Inflation hit 85.5% in October 2022. That number is almost incomprehensible until you translate it into daily life. A bag of flour that cost 10 lira becoming 18 within months. Rent contracts becoming grotesque jokes. Raises always running 6 months behind the prices. Turks who had done everything right watched their purchasing power dissolve faster than they could recalculate it. But here's what makes this worse. The official numbers were likely understated. Independent economists at the INEG research group calculated peak inflation closer to 186%, nearly double the government's figure. Ordinary Turks didn't need a data set to tell them that. They felt it every time they opened their wallets. After the 2023 elections, his slimmest victory ever, Erdogan appointed a credentialed central bank governor and brought in Mehmet Şimşek, a finance minister with deep credibility in international markets. The message was unmistakable. The experiment was over. Within months, Turkey's benchmark rate climbed from 8.5% to 50%. That is not a course correction, that is a complete reversal. And it raises the question that cuts through any ideological defense. If Erdogan truly believed his theory, why did he abandon it the moment political survival required it? The answer is uncomfortable. The theory was always secondary to power. We're closing in on the core of what started this story. How does one man's personal conviction reshape the economic reality of 85 million people? The U-turn tells you something the collapse alone doesn't, that the theory was never really about economics. It was about political identity. Even with rates at 50%, the recovery has been slow and lopsided. As of early 2026, independent estimates put Turkey's annual inflation still running between 45 and 60%. The lira has not recovered. $1 still buys over 30 lira. The savings of an entire generation have not come back. They never will. A Turkish civil servant who retired in 2020 with the equivalent of $30,000 in savings now holds roughly 8,000 inches real purchasing power. The intervening years didn't spend that money. They evaporated it. No fraud, no theft, just policy. The human cost extends beyond savings. Turkey is experiencing one of its sharpest brain drain episodes in decades. Engineers, doctors, developers, leaving in numbers that alarm employers and universities. When staying becomes economically irrational, people with options leave. The piece most analyses miss: central banks exist precisely because inflation management must be protected from electoral pressures. Politicians face voters every few years. Inflation compounds every month. Those timelines are incompatible, which is exactly why central bank independence was invented. Strip that independence, and you get Turkey. What Turkey proved with a G20 economy, as the test case, is that destroying central bank independence is not an abstract policy mistake. The cost is quantifiable: 85% inflation, a currency worth a fraction of its former self, a generation's savings erased without a single public vote. And this is where the story doesn't cleanly end. Inflation is declining, but structural trust doesn't recover on the same timeline it was destroyed. Foreign investors who watched 4 governors fired in 2 years don't return on the strength of one election cycle. That trust takes a decade to rebuild, if it returns at all. Here is the answer. One man's conviction that every economist alive was wrong cost Turkey 80% of its currency value, 85% peak inflation, and the savings of millions who never cast a vote on the matter. It wasn't war, sanctions, or a global shock. It was a theory, held by one man, enforced with unchecked authority. And that distinction matters. It means this was entirely preventable. Institutional independence exists to protect people from exactly this. When you remove it, ordinary citizens pay the price. Turkey will recover. It always has. But the question every economist is now asking isn't about Turkey. It's about which country's next leader is watching this story and thinking, he was close to right. If this changed how you think about central bank independence, hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into how power actually shapes economies. Drop a comment. Do you think Erdogan knew the theory was wrong? Or did he genuinely believe it?